Hi, welcome back to the series on training fundamentals on TRaC skills. Today we're going to cover rate of reinforcement. We've already gone over timing and criteria, and now we will work on rate of reinforcement. And as you know, that timing and criteria are critical to your training, so is rate of reinforcement. But before we can talk about it, we need to go over what is reinforcement. And basically, it's defined as an increase in behavior. So anything your dog is willing to work for is a reinforcer. Now, the primary ones are food, sex, and for herding dogs, herding is inherently reinforcing. The secondary reinforcers are learned, such as praise, petting, playing with a tug toy, those type of things. As we learned in the last video, cues can also be reinforcers, as they are a secondary reinforcer if they've been taught through positive training. So the main elements of reinforcement are the value, the amount, and the frequency. And I know myself, I tend to be kind of, stingy. I tend to be stingy. But especially when you're introducing a new behavior, you want to be very generous, use high value treats, give a lot of them often, because you want to keep your dog in the game. They're not sure what's going on and what this new behavior is you're working on, so you've got to give them a lot of reinforcement to keep them in the game. Now, rate of reinforcement is defined by the number of reinforcers given in a set amount of time. And usually we look at it as reinforcers per minute. So if you do a 10-minute session and you give 63 reinforcers, treats, something like that, then your rate of reinforcement is 6.3 per minute. And you can use that if you want to track what you're doing, or if you're concerned that maybe your rate of reinforcement is getting too low. And if it gets too low, then your dog may quit working, or they may just lose enthusiasm for the work. So you definitely want to maintain their desire to work. Now, if you do like something that's a long behavior that takes a minute or has a lot of duration, then your rate of reinforcement can drop. If the behavior takes a minute and you do a 10-minute session, you're only going to get in 10 reinforcers in the session at the most. And so if you do that, you definitely want to have high value, give a lot of them, and if you're tugging, maybe long tug sessions. But it's just inherent in when you're training something such as distance or duration. And you want to build up to that. And you can also ping pong your duration, so you're not just drawing it out and making it harder and more difficult for your dog each time. Now, one thing you have to remember about herding dogs is that being around stock is inherently reinforcing to them. So just looking at stock and working stock is reinforcing. And that's good and it's bad. It's good because if dog's flanking and doing a great job, just continuing to flank is reinforcing. So you're pretty much off the hook for providing reinforcement. You just let them continue. But let's say dog is flanking and slicing in and getting closer, pushing the stock offline as he moves around them. Well, if you allow dog to keep flanking, then you're reinforcing something you don't want by allowing that to continue, just the flanking to continue. So you have to watch. Just letting your dog watch stock, be around stock, and work stock is reinforcing. So you have to use that to your advantage and pay attention to when your dog is around stock, what they're doing. So rate of reinforcement and criteria are inversely related. In other words, as criteria increases, or something you're teaching gets more difficult and precise, the rate of reinforcement usually decreases. And conversely, when criteria decreases and something you're working on is very easy, the rate of reinforcement usually increases. Not always, but usually. So if your rate of reinforcement drops too far and you think your dog's losing enthusiasm, you can break your training down into smaller steps so that you can increase your rate of reinforcement. So I hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, please tell your friends and spread the herd.